What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another edition of the Rob Duran podcast. I'm Rob Duran, and I'm here by myself today. We're going to talk some baseball. The MLB season just ended yesterday, Sunday. We are here today on Monday, waiting for the MLB playoffs to begin. The wild card round starts on Tuesday, tomorrow, and we're here to talk some baseball. I'm excited to get into this. But before I get started on what to expect for this first round of the playoffs or the wild card round, I want to touch on something that we kind of touched on in episode 1 of the podcast. Please check that out on YouTube if you haven't already. Make sure to like and subscribe to our channel as well. But I want to touch on the New York Yankees. As you guys know, I'm a huge Yankee fan, been rooting for the team my whole life. And they had a very disappointing season this season. So I want to make sure that I touch on that, kind of close the book on the Yankees, because they're no longer a relevant team, unfortunately. They're not playing in October, so we're not going to discuss them past this. So obviously a very disappointing season for the Yankees. As a fan, I was very disappointed, very discouraged as well, excuse me, to see that the Yankees did not improve upon what we saw towards the end of last season. And you may be thinking, well, what are you talking about last season, Rob? Well, from July of 2022, last season, the Yankees were one game above 500 from July of 2022. Now, they finished the season 2 games above 500 this year, meaning the Yankees have been hovering around 500 for the last 2 years. Going into the offseason, there were question marks. Are they going to address left field? Are they going to address third base? Because Aaron Hicks and Josh Donaldson were absolutely atrocious. And unfortunately, they did not address that. The big signings for the Yankees in the offseason were bringing back their star right fielder, their captain, Aaron Judge, which was a no-brainer. We all knew that was going to happen. But then they also signed Carlos Rodon. And while that addition was absolutely great, and it, obviously didn't pan out the way they had hoped going into this season, the way Rodon was hurt through most of the beginning of the season and struggled immensely, except for a couple starts here and there. This season, the addition of Rodon wasn't necessarily, obviously I wanted it. I'm not going to front and sit here and say, oh, they shouldn't have signed him. I don't think it was a necessary signing. I think the Yankees should have prioritized left field, prioritized third base, maybe even try and find an upgrade at catcher. We know Trevino was hurt for most of the season as well. And that came to light later on. But I'm not going to sit here and say injuries were the reason that the Yankees did not succeed and make the playoffs this year. I think obviously without Aaron Judge getting hurt against that wall at Dodger Stadium, they make the postseason. Maybe as a wildcard team, maybe they win the division. Who knows? But we're here. They didn't address the needs that they had to. I think poor roster construction has been an issue for the Yankees for a few years now. I've been saying it, dating back to when I was doing podcasts with the Sports 360 podcast. For a few years, I've been saying the Yankees need to address the roster because the roster construction is going to come back to bite them. And it has. And it has at the end of last season. It did this season. And hopefully they've learned from their mistakes. There's supposed to be a whole audit and things like that going on for the Yankees this season, this offseason, led by Hal Steinbrenner. He's bringing in somebody to look at to something. I don't know what it is. But, Aaron Judge has come out and said, we got to change things around here. Personally, I don't think analytics is necessarily the whole problem. Along with kind of piggybacking off what Aaron Judge said, I think they're getting information, which is great, but it's the way they utilize the information and the type of information they're giving to their players that is the deficiency. That is the problem with the New York Yankees. There is a place for analytics in baseball. I'm on board with that. I don't think it's the be-all, end-all of everything, but the Yankees need to figure something out, whether it's an overhaul of Michael Fishman and his whole analytics department, whether it's moving on from Brian Cashman. I do believe that Cashman and Aaron Boone are both going to return. I think Cashman should not have returned last season. They should not have given him the extension. They did. We are here. Aaron Boone, I don't want to put too much blame on him because at the end of the day, his job is to manage what you put in front of him. Cashman is the guy who puts that roster in front of him, and Boone has to go out there and do his best. Unfortunately, when you have to pencil in Josh Donaldson at third base, and his lackluster production, Aaron Hicks and his lackluster production. Harrison Bader was injured a bunch of times. He was an injury-prone center fielder when they got him. continue to do that. So he just followed suit and was himself. Elite defender, but you're not going to get much out of him offensively. Unfortunately, when you have all that, you're not going to see success. And that's exactly what we saw from the 2023 Yankees. My plan this offseason, I'm hoping that they continue to build on what they saw towards the end of this season, continue to give guys like Austin Wells some run, especially next season. I think he can be the starting catcher. You have to become more balanced. You need some left-handed hitters. You play at Yankee Stadium with the short porch. Why not give Austin Wells that chance to be the catcher of the future? He showed that he can handle the pitching staff well. I would have loved to see him catch with Cole pitching. We didn't get to see that. Shout out to Cole as well, by the way, who's all but secured that AL Cy Young in his last start. But the Yankees need to get more athletic, more balanced. We need some more left-handed hitters, more left-handed pop. Austin Wells is a starting point. He provides that. Hopefully Rizzo can return, but the Yankees cannot do what I just said and just say, I hope that we'll be fine because this person's coming back. This person will be healthy. Let's not do that. Go out there, sign Yamamoto from Japan, bring him in, slot him in behind Cole. That 1-2 punch with him and Cole should be great. If you don't know about him, please go look him up. He's coming over from Japan. Hopefully this season. Hopefully the Yankees are supposed to be a front runner for him. If Juan Soto becomes available, I know it's a dream. It's a huge, big dream, and I'm chasing it. But if Juan Soto becomes available, then please, all I want is the Yankees to push all the chips onto the table. I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know what the price is for him. Obviously, it's going to have to come with an extension because he's a free agent after next season. But Juan Soto is a guy you put all the chips on the table for. We should continue to see Anthony Volpe continue to progress. I know a lot of people were disappointed in his season, but let's not forget that he basically skipped AAA and developed at the major league level. So I think next season we're going to see a Volpe who strikes out less, is less worried about the power and more worried about bat-to-ball contact. I think we'll see him continue to improve. He's very good defensively, and we'll continue to see him get on base, steal bases, and do a lot of the things he did well. Continue to improve on those things. So I want to just close out that book on the New York Yankees. I know a lot of people were waiting for me to kind of react to their season throughout the season. Didn't have the opportunity to do so, so I wanted to make sure to start this episode with that. And that being said, goodbye, New York Yankees. I'll see you next season. Please improve, do your best, and add some pieces. Now, moving on. So the wild card round begins tomorrow, like I said earlier. And we got some good games. This is a short series. So I want to touch on the first series. The first series being the Rays with Texas. Now both teams come into these playoffs with some major injury concerns. The Rays have been pretty much hobbled all season. The Rangers, they got DeGrom and Scherzer and all these guys throughout the season. Had high hopes for them. Both of those guys are out for them. We'll see if Scherzer can return at some point this postseason, but that remains to be seen. Offensively, Texas has some incredible guys who can mash. But I think what the Rays bring is something they've brought consistently for the past few years. They won 99 games this year, and nobody even talked about them. Nobody noticed because they're just a team that just puts their head down and goes out and play. And I think their pitching is going to do just enough to limit that damage that Texas can do offensively. And I think they're going to end up taking this series and moving on to the divisional round. The next series is the Twins and the Blue Jays. I like this series for a lot of reasons. Both teams pitch really, really, really well, especially at the top of their rotation. So I think we're going to see some low-scoring games this series. So if you're into that, if you love that, this is the series for you to watch. I think the combination of Gosman along with Bassett, even Barrios and those guys for the Blue Jays, they're going to do a lot of damage. They're going to shut down that Twins lineup, who's already going into this postseason a little bit hobbled. And despite the fact that they have great pitching as well, the Twins do, I think what the Blue Jays come with on the offensive side will be just enough to get by their pitching. So I think the Blue Jays take this series. Let's go on to the National League. So the Marlins and Phillies. I like that the Marlins are in the playoffs. I think it's great. I think it's their first full season in the playoffs since they won the World Series in 2003. They did make it in 2020, the shortened season. But they're here in full season. They're in the playoffs. They added a lot of good pieces, especially at the trade deadline. Unfortunately, Sandy Alcantara and Eury Perez two guys in the rotation who are sensational. Obviously, Sandy struggled a bit this season. Maybe the pitch clock has something to do with that. We'll see. But those two guys are not in. So unfortunately, the Marlins have to try to overcome this incredibly potent Phillies offense without those two guys in the lineup. And I think the having Bryce Harper come back as early as he did, and then also just kind of the way Trey Turner bounced back in that second half of the season was very impressive. And I can see that continuing in the playoffs, much like we saw last season with Philly, because I think Philly has a better lineup. And I'll say this straight up. They have a better lineup this season than they did last season when they made the World Series. So I'm incredibly interested to see how this Phillies roster and this Phillies team progresses throughout the playoffs. I think they take this series as well. Brewers and Diamondbacks. This is a series that I think is overlooked. It's not sexy. It doesn't have any pizzazz or anything like that. Not too much star power, quote unquote star power in this series. But it's a pretty good series, especially if you like seeing young guys run, you like speed, you like, great pitching. I think the Brewers come into the postseason probably with the best pitching staff overall, led by Corbin Burns in the rotation and Devin Williams closing out games at the end. And we know that great pitching can take you far in the playoffs. So the Brewers are a team to watch in this postseason. Obviously, they take their division. They won that division. They earned it. They played well all season. Offensively, they're not going to kill it offensively, but I think they do just enough to get by, especially with that rotation and the pitching staff that they have. As far as the Diamondbacks, that's a nice team to see in here. I thought they'd make some noise this season. I didn't know if they would make enough noise to make the playoffs. I thought the Padres would be one of those teams out west that will make a run for that and keep the D-backs out of the playoffs, but they're here. And they have a good 1-2 punch up top with Gallen and Kelly. So we'll see how they fare in this series. I don't think it'll be enough, but they bring a lot of speed, a lot of energy, led by a person who I consider Rookie of the Year, Corbin Carroll, who's a very exciting young player, only 23 years old. Dude is a beast. So definitely tune into that series as well. And that's how I think, well, the Brewers will take that series. So that's how I think the this postseason matchup is gonna, at least the wild card round is gonna turn out. I'll give you guys who I believe are going to continue on, and then throughout this postseason, I'll jump on and kind of give you guys analysis based on that. So in the next round for the division series, now we have Orioles versus Tampa, Blue Jays versus Houston, Atlanta and Philly, Brewers versus Dodgers. I have the Orioles and Houston moving on to the ALCS. For the NLCS, I have the Braves and Milwaukee. So I do have Milwaukee beating the Dodgers, and I'll break all that down, assuming this is the way it lines up. So I won't give a full breakdown now just because we don't know who's going to make it to the next round. And in the World Series, I have Houston and Atlanta, with Atlanta taking it all. Those are my official picks for the MLB playoffs. I wanted to make sure I get those out there before the postseason begins. But let me know what your predictions are. Comment on the video once I post it. I look forward to hearing your comments, your feedback on everything that I discussed here today. Happy to debate always. But thank you for tuning in, and see you next time.